You ready to roll? Let's call the meeting to order. We have a first item is the approval of minutes of the previous meeting on October the 7th, 2024. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'd ask that all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 1 is approved. Actually, it's item 2. I'll go item 1. Next item is the consent agenda items included in the section that are proposed that would be typically be administratively approved, but because they are attached to the historic restoration grant applications, they must be approved by the board. We have an opportunity to vote on those as a slate unless there's one item that you have questions about, and we'll pull that item out and consider it separately. So just let me know. Is there a motion to approve this consent item?
I'll make that.
We have a motion by Jeff to approve it. A second?
A second.
I have a second motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'd ask that all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The next item is the 4A. Jessica?
Hello, everyone. This one's on. Our next item is item 4A, consider historic restoration grant reimbursement for the property at 515 Price Street. This is HRG 2024-010. Oh, wait. Let me skip past these. I have all my. Here we go.
13. Here's 13.
Sorry about that. So this property is 515 Price Street. Originally, the applicant was approved to replace rotten wood and repaint, and the estimated cost was $11,050. The applicant has completed the work and turned in invoices and proof of payment in the amount of $10,366. They originally funded at 4.95%, not to exceed $547.41. And so staff recommends the final project cost and the reimbursement in the amount of $513.11. That price is different because their overall price came in less than the original estimate. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment.
Okay, do we have any public comments on this item? There being no public comments, I'll consider a motion on HRG number 2024-010.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second now?
I'll second it.
Got a second? Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item B.
And for this item, we're going to wait for Chris to come down here. Since he is the owner and the applicant and also an HLPC member, he has recused himself from this item, but as the applicant is here to answer any questions you may have. Excuse me. This item 4B is consider historic restoration grant reimbursement for 522 East Main Street, HRG 2024-008. The applicant was approved for driveway paver installation and a retaining wall repair in the front of their home. The original estimated cost was $35,338.93. The applicant has provided staff with copies and proof of payment in the amount of $33,587.33. And it was funded at 4.95% of the final project cost, not to exceed $1,750.68. Staff recommends a release of grant funds in the amount of $1,662.57. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment, and like I mentioned, the applicant is here if you want to ask him any questions.
Chris, do you have any comments? Hey.
I make a motion that we release the grant funds in the amount of $1,662.57.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, item passes unanimously.
He's gonna have to do this 2 more times. So your next item is item 4C, discuss and consider certificate of appropriateness for property at 122 North Church Street. The applicant, Ryan Hairston, is here, as well as his contractor, if you have any questions for them. So what they're requesting is the installation of 3 windows on the exterior facade of the building at 122 North Church Street. 2 windows would be approximately 8 feet by 10 feet installed on the north facade of the building, and 1 window approximately 4 feet by 7 feet would be on the east facade or the back of the building. They are requesting to install either steel-cased or aluminum-cased windows that would match the windows on the front part of the building. And then they would also be adding some brick frame detail work to match the bricks on the front of the building. This building is listed as a 1958 one-story rectangular brick commercial structure with a flat roof and metal double-hung windows and plate glass windows. It does have a bit of an inset and was formerly used as a downtown art studio. Staff finds that B, C, D, J, and K relate to this proposed construction. And one explanation of a picture that we'll get to is a close-up picture of the brick. From some of the research that staff has done and the applicant, it looks like the front detailing brick was done at a different time, and then maybe the back portion was added onto because it's a dramatically different type of brick in here. So we have some pictures. This was supplied by the applicant. The west facade up at the very top of your screen is essentially the front of the building. So what they're looking at is doing 2 windows facing the parking lot and 1 window facing the rear of the building to add some more natural light. They also supplied some examples of steel windows that they were interested in, or aluminum windows. And then you can see here, this is the front facade of the building. It does have a plate glass window and then also a metal divided window in the front. And you can see here on the left is the brick that I was referring to. The brick on the right-hand side is what wraps around the front, and then on the left-hand side is what goes down the rest of the facade, and that is the brick that would be cut into to place the windows. The picture on the right-hand side is approximately where the windows would go on that side. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment, and like I mentioned, the applicant and his contractor are here as well.
Would any public comment, or would the applicant or the contractor, either one, like to speak? Good.
I have a question. So is the brick that we're seeing on the split picture, is that like just the front of the building, like just the front facade?
Yes, so it's the front facade, and then it
Like
wraps
a lip?
maybe 2 feet.
It's probably 4 feet to the side, but that's probably the extent.
Yeah, so that's about 4 feet around that corner. It's kind of covered up by that tree you see in the right-hand picture. It wraps around about that far, and then it is the more modern-looking brick around the rest of the building.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Montes, if you can come up here just so we can hear your comment. We gotta record everything.
Yes, Joseph Montes, middle name Irie. Again, as far as, is this the building that is for sale, or is this the buyer of the building?
This is the new owner,
And who is the new owner?
Mr. Ryan Hairston, who's here in our audience.
Okay, well, that's all I was trying to figure out, because I knew it was for sale. Didn't know if this was, sound like a good idea,
I went by and looked at it. I think it's gonna look a lot better with the windows in it. It really is.
Just so, one, I will declare,
Sorry, we have a mic.
No.
Everyone's got to be recorded.
to clarify, it's under contract right now. We're in our feasibility period. Our feasibility period ends this Friday. And so part of this was to see if this was a possibility to create more of an inviting space, a warm space in the interior for what we're intending to do with it, which is a gelato shop and cafe. So right now it's really dark inside, and so to make it feasible and usable, we feel like we need to let some light in. So, thank you.
Cool.
Not that we're biased in any way for the gelato shop.
If there are no more comments, we'll ask for a motion to approve. Anyone like to make a motion? Jeff,
I'd like to make the motion, we approve the COA.
is there a
on
second?
North Church. Yes.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, passed unanimously.
Item 4D is discuss and consider certificate of appropriateness for property located at 305 East Main Street. The applicant, Sean Schertz, and the owner, Ramsey Parr, have applied for this. They are wanting to clean and paint the concrete area above the awning. This building at 305 East Main Street is listed as contributing to the Downtown Historic Overlay District, and it's a 1908 two-story brick commercial building, and a stucco facade was noted in that 1986 survey. We assume it was windows at some point, but it's been stucco or concrete for a very long time now. The applicant is requesting to paint the currently painted section. Right now, it's kind of a faded purplish pink, and so they're requesting to change it to a solid gray color. Staff find that city ordinance B, G, H, and K relate to this proposed project. And here we just kind of highlighted red the area we're talking about painting. So essentially the inset faded purple areas is what they are requesting to paint. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment. Oh, and this is also the gray sample that they provided to us.
The grizzle gray.
Yes, ma'am. And when I put it in your packet, I didn't realize originally you could see 2 or 3 samples, but yes, this is the one they are intending on painting.
In fact, they look very different on the screen and on the paper, don't
They
they?
do.
Which one's the real one?
So the one we saw was a little bit closer to the one you see printed on the paper.
Okay. Good. Yeah, that's pretty dark. Okay, any audience comments or questions? No comments or no questions or comments? Anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion and we approve the certificate of appropriateness.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, we'll ask for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, passed unanimously. Jessica?
Our next item, 4E, is discuss and consider certificate of appropriateness for property located at 323 East Main Street. The owner and applicant is Antonia Sanchez, and she is requesting to add an awning sign that you typically see at a lot of downtown businesses. She's wanting to add a 36-inch by 12-inch vinyl sign on 3mm ACM board that would be hung under the awning using a chain, similar to many of the properties we see downtown. This property is a 1910 brick structure with a flat roof. It was still listed as a 1-story, even though there is a bit of a half-story, but that's been put on the inside. Excuse me. And city staff finds that criteria B, C, D, J, and K relate, as well as our Chapter 10 of our sign guidelines, which do say that awning signs should be considered as appropriate, especially in a downtown region. And approximately here is, and of course I couldn't do that 3D because I'm not that talented on a computer, but essentially that's where we're looking at an awning sign, but it would be hung perpendicular with the front of the building. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment.
Any public comment or questions? Being none, Jessica, go ahead. Any for Jessica? There being none?
I
Okay,
do,
I'm
I have a
sorry.
sign. I mean, I have a question. The sign on the building, will that stay, or is she gonna remove it?
That sign will stay, the one above the awning will stay, and then they will have another one that says Beautiful You Salon and Spa as well. So this is an additional sign.
Okay.
So you'll see it as you're like walking down the
Correct.
sidewalk, yeah.
Correct.
How low will it hang?
I don't know exactly. There are standards through our inspections department where they have to have a certain amount of leeway walking on the sidewalk. So they'll have to follow whatever their standards are. And I think they can hang down roughly a foot from the awning, just so that way they can have about 6 to 6.5 feet of clearance. So that way no one's banging on their head.
Okay.
So I think that's the max. Usually they don't hang down quite that far, but I think that is the maximum from the bottom of the awning to the bottom.
I think normally the clearance, it's stated how much clearance you've got to have and not how much it would hang down, probably.
Correct, and I think that's just the typical, it hangs down no more than this, so we can have this much just based on the side of, the height of our sidewalks to the ratio of the front.
Okay. Any more questions?
Will the sign that hangs, will it look similar to the one that she has hanging above the awning?
It will have similar wording. She did not say if it was going to have the different edges or if it was just going to be a square.
Is that something we need to approve, or is that?
Typically, no. Typically, as long as it is a appropriate style of sign, as far as an awning sign hanging down, meets the inspections requirements. Typically, HLPC has not specified if it needs to talk about the type of edges or the design.
Okay.
Any other questions? There being none, would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the COA.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, passed unanimously.
And one note, the rest of the COAs are all attached to historic restoration grant applications, just so you know, because that will come up in a little bit. So our next item, 4F, is discuss and consider COA for property located at 701 West Cox Street. This applicant and also owner is requesting to remove the composite shingle roof and replace it with a metal standing seam roof. The property at 701 West Cox Street was listed as an individual property under historic overlay in 2022 because it embodied a distinctive characteristic of a type or period of architecture or method of construction. The applicant has stated that they would like to change the material of the roof because originally this would have been a cedar roof of some sort. A composite roof was put on several years ago before they owned the property, and it's too heavy for the building. So now it's creating a lot of structural damage, some leveling issues, and so they're wanting to go back with a lighter material. So they are requesting to remove the existing composite shingle roof and then install a new metal standing seam roof. And typically, roof replacement is considered ordinary maintenance unless it's a change of material like we see here today. And city staff finds that ordinance criteria B, C, D, F, G, J, and K all relate to this application. And you can see here, this is a current picture of the roof. It is a bit of an older roof, so there is some damage, and they are wanting to go back with a metal roof. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment.
Any public comment? Jessica, I have a question. Is it going to be a standing seam one or just the lap over metal?
What they applied for was a standing seam.
Okay, it's a lot better.
Which means what?
It means that normally we would have a piece standing like this and a piece would wrap over it like this and they would run a machine down it. Makes it pretty watertight, almost totally
Seamless.
seamless.
And you don't have rivets and things like that.
Lasts
so.
for
Okay.
as long as the material lasts.
Just one question. Should we consider the color of that roof?
Typically, HLPC has not. Same thing with if it's a composite roof for composite roof, even if it's been a color change in the shingle color, typically HLPC has not reviewed that.
Okay.
Of course, if you'd like to ask, I don't think the applicant's here. Don't believe the applicant's here. We can ask for that clarification, but typically HLPC is not asked about the color.
Yeah, I mean,
wondering about the
it could
color
be
myself.
barn red
Yeah.
or,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't want to
I don't-
assume that it's going to be something aesthetic.
it's a completely, it's a very different kind of roof, and the color they pick out I mean, we could just all say, well, we trust them to do the right thing, but that generally isn't how we work here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can we, I know the materials and the type of materials we're talking about in the replacement, that's what we're discussing here. Can we make a decision on colors also, or is that something that can
She
be?
said typically we did.
That's what I didn't think we did. so.
Typically, HLPC has not,
Correct.
specifically because we don't have a roof color palette selected,
Right.
or typically what we've done, especially with paint colors, is we suggest to applicants that they follow one of the historic color palettes. And there are some roof color palettes, typically it's more neutrals, more plain metal colors, kind of a matte finish on them. So we can suggest they pick a color that would be recommended for historic structures, but we typically haven't said you have to do this red versus this red because there's nothing in our ordinance stating which reds are preferred.
Right.
Jessica, since a shingle roof would be weathered gray at some point in time, I mean, can we make a suggestion that it be as close as possible to what the original roof would have been?
We can certainly make that suggestion to them. And of course, even with the metal roofs, they do tend to fade a bit as well.
Not so much anymore.
Not as much as shingle roofs
Not so
or
much.
the cedar ones. And typically, people have not picked the red ones because they don't weather as well as some of the matte colors or the grays and things like that. So we can suggest that to them.
I just think it'd be good because, I mean, it could be pink or something if they wanted
Yeah,
to, what we're saying.
We have a lot of turquoise and pink and stuff in Colorado metal, so.
I just think it should be something similar to what the original wood shingles would be once they've weathered.
And we can certainly suggest that.
Someone like to put that in a motion?
Oh, I still have a question. So I mean, I'm not a roof expert. I would think that a metal roof would be heavier than composite, but I guess it's not.
No, it's much
Okay.
lighter.
No?
And a lot of
Yeah.
it is because you don't have as many layers to it
Gotcha.
usually.
Okay.
Yes.
And we've seen that with a few buildings that are similar to this one. There's a few that are not under historic overlay, but the same time frame that do have metal roofs on them now. Usually because cedar shingles are very, very, very expensive
Yes.
these days.
Yeah.
So that seems to be a pretty common alternative.
You can also put space decking on a metal
There's
roof, like a foot
Yeah, I
apart.
just added a metal. They're much lighter,
Okay.
so makes a big difference.
You want to make that in form of motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve COA 2024-036, meeting criteria B, C, D, F, G, J, and K,
And recommend that it be,
and recommend that they follow our color palette or something close to it that we have established for historic metal roofs in the city. Sound good?
do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, unanimously approved.
Our next item is discuss and consider COA for 222 North Mound Street. The property owners, Walt and Marnie, there we go. I was gonna butcher it, and I knew it. Are requesting to repaint the exterior of their house. Again, typically these are administratively approved unless there is a color change requested. And the applicant, currently the color of their home is a greenish gray, and they're requesting to paint it a new solid color. This property is a 1900 2.5-story prairie-style wood-framed house remodeled by Diedrich Rolfs in the 1920s after a fire. It's listed as contributing to the Washington Square Historic District, and staff find that B, C, F, and H relate to this project. And you can see here is a few pictures of the current home, of the home currently. And at the time of the application, the applicant did not have a color picked out, but of course, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is here as well, if you'd like to ask them any questions.
Okay, would you like to make any comments?
I would if I could.
Good, come up, microphone, please.
Good afternoon, all. Walt Polsterway, 222 Mound Street. We do need some help, so there was also a grant ask in this. I can tell you that this actually is a much more significant, historically speaking, house than we realized when we purchased it. The actual construction date has been documented as 1890, and it's Dietrich Rolf's first house on Mound Street. And it was commissioned by John Schmidt for his nephew, who was immigrating from Germany. The Schmidt family owned it until 1896, and then the William Price family bought it, and they owned it until 1970. So great tenure there. It was originally built as a single-family residence, but the fire, which you had mentioned, was in 1925, and Rolfs actually came out of retirement to oversee the reconstruction and was converted into a true fourplex. So we know it's his first home on Mound Street, and we also believe it's his last house in Nacogdoches because he came out of retirement. We actually asked 6 contractors for bids. This is the Pitt family, had owned it since 1976. The home needs a lot of love. Exterior is rough. A lot of the windows are also gonna have to be rebuilt, and we're gonna work with that. But out of the 6 contractors we asked for bids, we only received 3 bids. They range from about 48,000 and a half to about 49,000 and a half. So I kind of have a pretty solid idea what it's gonna cost. And our concern is because the paint has failed, it is peeling, it's in bad shape. We have rot in a lot of the windowsills and a lot of the sashes. If we have to save for a few years to afford to paint, and we're going to make it a little bit brighter of a color, match some of the other homes, we will go with at least probably a 3-color scheme. But if we have to delay painting for 2, 3, 4 years while we save, our concern is the wood will just continue to deteriorate. So we are asking for assistance. This is my wife and I's primary residence, and it's an awesome house, and we want to give it the love that it deserves. So I can answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good job. Jessica, do you have any more comments?
No, sir.
Anyone like to make a motion? Am I gonna have to call on someone?
I'm,
We approve the certificate of appropriateness for this property.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, would you please signify, if you're in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, passed unanimously.
The next item is discuss and consider COA for property located at 1801 North Street. The owner and applicant is Russell Smith and Heritage Company LLP. This building is typically known as the place of Thomas J. Rusk home on North Street, in case you were wondering which building this is. They are requesting approval to do driveway brick repair as well as concrete repair. This is one of the only types of landscaping that HLPC reviews and that HRGs can be applied to because it's technically a hardscape. So they're requesting to repair and widen the existing brick driveway with matching antique bricks, and as well as tear out and replace existing concrete area that connects the driveway to the road that's badly cracked. This building is a 1923 2.5-story building with a wood frame and tan brick veneer. It is known as the Beaux Arts Home. It was designed by Dietrich Rolfs and is individually listed under historic overlay. And just to clarify, there is no work being done to the actual house itself or business now. City ordinance criteria B, G, and I relate to this project. And you can see here some pictures supplied by the applicant. The concrete is on your left that would be torn out and replaced. And then the bricks, especially along the side, are starting to fail because people drive over them all the time. So they're wanting to widen that driveway a bit and then add some more of that brickwork on the side as the border. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment.
Any public comment? There being none, any questions of Jessica?
Has this come before us before?
They have done a similar project. It was, I believe, 2 years ago, because it's not in this current open grant HRG cycle is the one, so I believe the 2023 grant cycle. They replaced the section that's much closer to the building and wraps around the back. So they have done similar projects in the past. This is just their next phase of it.
Okay. I thought I remembered.
And so the city easement area is gonna be, cement, correct? And then it
Correct.
goes up to that, and then it'll be, and they're sourcing historic bricks, is that what they're gonna do? Is that their plan?
Yes, that is. That's what they did the
Okay.
last time as well, and I believe they already have the bricks. They just didn't use all of them on the first phase of it.
Okay.
So they're gonna keep using that same brick that matches.
All about that.
It's a
Doing
good
a great
question.
job. It's painstaking work to do things like that.
Been there, done that.
I had a bunch in my backyard if you need some.
Any other questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve COA 2024-38, with its criteria B, G, and I.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, passed unanimously.
Our next item is 4I, COA 2024-048 for the property located at 311 East Main Street. The applicant is requesting to do multiple different projects on the exterior of this building. One is repair and repaint the front windows on the second floor, repair and replace windows on the rear of the building to match the existing ones, and then clean and resurface the back wall, including removal of plaster, and the repair of the brick. This property at 318 East Main Street is listed as a 1908 two-story rectangular masonry structure with a flat roof, a stuccoed facade with metal awning, and it's listed as contributing to the Downtown National Historic District. Staff finds that B, C, G, and H relate to this. And the windows on the upper floor is the ones that the applicant is wishing to repaint and repair. You'd see on the back facade, there are a few missing windows, a few that have been boarded up. The applicant's requesting to replace those to match the existing, and then to clean and resurface this back wall and remove the white stucco that is on there. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is here as well, so I'm sure you can bring him up if you have any questions after public comment.
Is there any public comment? There being none, any questions for Jessica?
What kind of repairs will be done to the windows?
That may be a question, Mr. Montes. Mr. Montes, do you want to come up here and answer? Thank you.
The front or rear windows?
Rear.
Okay, the rear ones, the far left two windows, as I look at it, are gonna be, actually windows, because those, they, will actually function. Open those up. The next two to the right, far right, will also be able to do the same thing. We're gonna move the air conditioning, relocate it upstairs in order to be able to make that second window actually a window. So like the ones you saw up front, we're gonna put antique one, I've got some saved, and put those in place. And I'll be working with Joey Renfro. He'll be doing the glass work and stuff like that, and another individual will be doing the windows. Then the ones in the middle, they, as you see the one right below the big old box up on top, that's where the elevator is, shaft. That's just gonna be, I'm gonna put wood back, I'm gonna put something nice back in there, make it like a shutter look on it, and make it attractive, because that is gonna be a blank, and the next one also goes into the blank spot. And so I'm taking four of the, I think there's seven. I think there's seven of them up there, and bring those back to life. Now the ones down below, the only one that actually has daylight, and those are really unique. Those have the old glass in them with the metal. I mean, little kind of like chicken wire.
Yeah.
That run through the middle.
Safety glass.
That's safety glass?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, that's the old approach to safety glass, the
That's it.
tempered glass.
That's it.
Okay, makes sense. Then, those right there, that one will be brought back to life to be able to get daylight coming through. The other ones, they do not go anywhere. They're just, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that, if I just black them out, make them look more attractive. And I looked at that stucco there and was trying to, no, you didn't ask, but just input. Different spots we've chipped off and looked at. I think there's good surface underneath it, and get that ugly white stucco off there and bring that brick back to life. And again, this is another thing. As far as the goal there is, I know there's people looking at that area to have functions and stuff off-street instead of shutting down the main street. Great idea in doing that. when I spoke with, another Main Street committee, any support I can get to get that, those antique transformers out of there. It's a safety issue. There's wires, I mean, as you take that plaster down, there's wires right there that you have to work around. And visually, it's awful looking. I mean, there's a lot of improvement happening in there. Even the tobacco place the other day had a tobacco something, and they shut down the street, which is great, and had functions out in the street instead of trying to shut down some other place. So I'm really open to that too.
Do you know if there's ever been any windows closed or patching done with brick on the back of that building?
Windows closed?
Yeah, like, I've done several old buildings like that, and what we ran into a lot was that they would come in, before they plastered, they'd come in and close up something, but the brick doesn't match.
No, these are not. As far as the surprise I had on the very first one was on the inside, we took that wood off of there, and the window's still there. And so that's
Right.
easy peasy one, just,
Yeah, cool.
fix it up and all that time. Then I was able to look at those windows, and I found, others that gonna fit in there really, do the same thing. It's gonna take a little craftsmanship to replace some of that stuff, but I'd rather do it the right way than the wrong way. But again, I point out that, that transformer stuff is awful. It's not an asset to anybody over there. And Encore, I guess it's Encore.
I believe so.
Okay. Some people are helping me connect with the right ones. If you know somebody, reach out to me. I think more gets done with a lot of people instead of just trying to poke at it.
Dennis White is working with them, trying to get some of that done over there behind the building. He's working on it. He might could help you get in touch with the right people.
I appreciate that.
And so your plan is to remove the plaster on the whole building side right there, take it back to its original brick?
Yeah.
And then on the windows, would those be wood framed with glass or metal? What are you?
To the left and to the right will be wood.
Okay.
Along with.
So similar to what you have in the front, like that, okay.
The ones up front, a lot of those are original.
Yep.
Windows, we got the wavy stuff in
Yeah.
everything. And one of the workers I had one day, he turned around and with a shovel and popped one of them out, so no moss. I told him no bueno pinata too. But again, as far as, I appreciate you considering it, and thank you for your time.
I want to commend you for doing this.
Thank you.
Connor Street.
Any questions for Jessica? There being none, anyone like to give us a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve certificate of appropriateness 2024-048, to approve that, to approve that, certificate of appropriateness. I can't talk either.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll ask you to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, passed unanimously.
Take out Chris again. So our next item is COA 2024-039 for the property located at 522 East Main Street. The applicant is Chris and Daniel LaBeouf. They are requesting to add porch lattice skirting to their property. The applicant's requesting to install decorative wooden porch skirting around the north facade and portions of the east and west facade. And then they're also requesting to close sections under their crawl space that are too narrow for porch skirting with brick instead, and that would be along the rear. The applicant also provided examples of skirting types. These are not the exact ones, but similar time frame, similar design as what they would request. This building at 522 East Main Street was built circa 1900. Was originally a wood-story dwelling with one outbuilding, and then sometime between 1912 and 1921, a second story was added. It is listed as contributing to the Sternhuya National Register Historic Overlay District, and staff find that B, G, J, and K relate to this. You can see here, in the orange box on your screen is the existing skirting, that is around the building. It's not around all portions, that is existing currently. And then the other examples are ones that was provided by the applicant, as well as an example from an older magazine that shows similar type of skirting on here. And then you can see some of the open crawl space areas. They're requesting to put porch lattice, as well as some of the narrow areas on the back of the property that would be covered with brick. I'm happy to answer any question after public comment, and of course, the applicant is here if you have any questions of him.
Chris, you have any questions or comments? Chris, do you have a favorite that you're thinking about in terms of the lattice?
I don't know that there's a favorite currently, but definitely one of those more decorative styles, and I'd like to add in some more of that pink that we did when we painted the house a few years ago. So maybe like that green and red one with
Yeah,
pink and the cream, just add a little bit more color and charm.
cool. Cool. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you.
So it's not necessarily going to be lattice, it could be one of these other skirtings, is that it?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, the one that's there already, is just what's there. And you know, there's like the diamond shaped like lattice. We kind of are not really interested in that. We're looking at something a little more visually interesting, more kind of antique-y looking.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions of Jessica? There being none, do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve COA 2024-039.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it unanimously. Anything else?
Got one more item in this marathon meeting.
Lord, that must be hidden from me. I didn't see it.
Got one more. So our last agenda item is agenda item 4K, consider budget for the 2025 historic, you almost missed the good stuff, Charles. The 2025 historic restoration grant cycle. So we had 12 applications this year. We started off with our standard, or we have our standard $25,000 pot to divide amongst these 12 applications. So staff did what we did last year as far as dividing it evenly, just because $25,000 does not go as far as it did in 1989 when we started this grant. So it's been the easiest and most equitable way we can kind of divide this up is doing the same percent for everybody, but it's a percent based on what their project estimate is. So everyone's not gonna have the same award amount, but it's the same percentage of their project total. So here in front of you, you have the budget as presented by staff. You see the 12 applications with their HRG numbers, their corresponding COA numbers, excuse me, the project address, the project estimate, the percent awarded. What we are proposing today is an 11% of the project estimate, and then the amount granted is the not to exceed amount each person would get if they spend that full amount. If they do not spend their full project estimate, as long as they finish all the projects, it's the 11% of what they spent, unless it's over that amount granted, then we give them the amount granted. So essentially, it's a not to exceed amount. And then the project description is on the side. You can see we divided up almost every dime of it. We have $296 left that was not really able to be divided out unless we gave everybody, I think it was 11.06%, and that math got very tricky. So we will have $296 that will roll into the next budget year, and we just keep adding those things. So staff is asking for an approval on this budget. If it is approved, this budget will go to City Council on November 19th for final approval, since City Council is the only one that can actually award money. If approved, we'll notify all the applicants. They have roughly a year to complete these projects, turn in the invoices, proof of payment, and then it comes before y'all for the release of those funds. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this budget.
Any questions?
Straightforward.
Being no questions, anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion, we
We have a
approve.
motion from Jeff and a second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Got passed unanimously.
So, and a note, our next meeting is December 2nd.